Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and I'm here to do a video talking about my Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs. I'm talking on the basis that I'm a Bulldogs fan, so I thought it'd be interesting to do a video talking about my side. Obviously, there's a few videos I want to do going forward where I talk about the revamp that the team's had and the prospects of 2024 and going forward and all that sort of stuff. And I've already done quite a few videos talking about the Bulldogs. But this video is going to be talking about Raymond Faitala-Mariner and the fact that he was the captain of the club. He's been let go and the whole dilemma of him being at the club and, is it a loss? Because I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that the Bulldogs are super light in the forwards and how big of a loss he's going to be and all that sort of stuff. And I just want to, to start the video, I just want to say the people who are saying Raymond Faitala-Mariner is going to be this huge loss for the Bulldogs obviously didn't watch last year. In fact, I've got his stats on the screen right now in terms of games that he's played. So he came into grade in 2015 at the Warriors. He played 11 games. He made a transfer to the Bulldogs. This hot for Shaun Lane. Obviously, we've seen those two careers have panned out. Shaun Lane went to the Warriors, made a name, ended up at the Parramatta Eels. He's sort of, a fringy origin sort of player. He's played in the grand final. And obviously, we've seen Raymond Faitala-Mariner's career's panned out when he's played 15, 16, 13, 10, 20 being the most. In 2020, he played in one of our worst years. He played 2 in 2021, had a career-threatening injury, came back in 2022, played 13, and then he played 14 last year. So, as you can see, he's not really renowned as being a guy who plays a lot of games, and he's just signed with the Dragons, and I know a few people who support the Dragons, and they've kind of messaged me and said, what are your thoughts of him signing? And I said, hey, I don't really like the signing, to be honest with you. You look at the Dragons as a whole, who have they actually signed going into 2024? Off the top of my head, they've signed 2 of the Bulldogs rejects and the proper rejects in Kyle Flanagan and now Raymond Faitala-Mariner, guys who were cast away to reserve grade, never to come back again, sort of thing. And a lot of the rest of the players that they've signed are kind of similar sort of circumstances. He's got the captain of the club in Ben Hunt looking to leave. New coach, which could could change your fortunes, but probably not. I really think it's a terrible signing for the Dragons, to be quite honest with you. You have a guy who, literally, our forward pack is so light. And, when people say that about the Bulldogs, they're not wrong. It's just the fact that Raymond Faitala-Mariner isn't any better or worse than the players that we bring in. Quite frankly, I just want to say it right now. I liked Raymond Faitala-Mariner when he was made captain last year. I was very happy for them. I was happy for the whole story of him coming back from injury, leading by example. Everything sort of seemed to be going to plan. Then all of a sudden, we saw the actual output on the field, and it was in my opinion, it was one of the worst performances I've seen, especially from a captain. In terms of captaincy and leadership, easily the worst I've ever seen at the Bulldogs. I just want to put that out there. You had in results just like a normal player. If he wasn't the captain of the club, would have been dropped straight away. The fact that he was captain of the club, I think, sort of spared him a few more games. And then obviously you add in injuries and suspensions and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for me, Raymond Faitala-Mariner, he's a guy who, has all the ability in the world, but just seems to be lacking something. I don't know I don't want to sit here and say it's effort, because I don't think it's an effort thing. I mean, the guy nearly lost his career a couple of years ago. That should be, enough in itself to say that it's not an effort thing. The guy can come back. He's faced a lot of adversity in his career, a lot of injuries, and I mean, I just listed off all the games that he's played per season, and generally about the 14, 15 game mark is sort of around what he gets out of, in the 25. And you add in, that's not playing finals or anything like that. But, look, the guy on his day can be a fantastic player, but his day was a couple of years ago, and he got made the captain, and I think, in hindsight, a terrible choice. And, I think the Bulldogs have actually done something very, very good, and they got rid of a player that they needed to do. Same can be said for Tavita Pengai. I'll be doing a video about him, talking about his possible return to the Broncos. But for me, the Bulldogs need to clear out Deadwood, and Raymond Faitala-Mariner is Deadwood. And there's no other nice way to sort of put it. The fact that, great guy. When I watched the game, he was one of the best with the crowd. Everything kind of says he's a great guy. He's a pretty good footballer at times. Maybe not so much right now. I mean, he's 30 going on 31. And when we talk about him, we talk about him as a guy who might be good in the future. And it's kind of well, not so much anymore. He's not a prospect anymore. He's just a straight up player now. He's only going to get worse at this point, and worse he has gotten. And just in terms of the Bulldogs getting rid of him, I think it's a great move. I think it's a good move for him too, because I think he needs a fresh start. He's been around the club through quite literally the worst years. When he came to the Dogs, they did a swap deal for Sean Lane, as I mentioned, and Sean Lane was a guy who was he was pretty well liked at the Bulldogs. We had a lot of second rows come through. I think we just got rid of Dale Finucane. It was kind of around the time that, Damien Cook was sort of around the club as well. A lot of the guys that we had some decent little reserve graders who went on to other clubs and went on to have pretty good careers. Sean Lane, we did the swap. Faitala-Mariner, big hype about him. Another New Zealander coming to the club at the time. You had the Frank Pritchard. We'd had the Sonny Bills in the past, looking at him as a future star of the club. And quite frankly, didn't live up to the hype immediately. Later in his career, was okay for us, but overall didn't really live up to the hype that I think Des Hasler, when he brought him to the club, thought he was going to be. And that happens, but when he first signed, he was a guy that we're like, all right, we've given up Sean Lane. He was playing quite good for us. We made the finals with Sean Lane in the side. Was quite important for us in that finals run. Then we give him up, and then all of a sudden we have Faitala-Mariner come over, and he's playing reserve grade for us. And it that trajectory of his career kind of seemed to stay that way, with a guy who had, all the potential in the world, the offloads, the size, speed, all that sort of stuff, but just couldn't find his feet in first grade. And, he goes to the Dragons right now, all these years in grade, and like I said, the most he'd ever played was 20. Apart from that, though, the rest of it's, 13, 14, 15, that sort of stuff. So, poor guy, hit with injuries big time, but, look, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that Raymond Faitala-Mariner wasn't, his service at the Dogs was quite good, especially over the years. We had lots of guys come in and out of the club. I mean, your Harry Ramirez and stuff who came in, played a couple of seasons, left. That's kind of the trajectory of the Dogs, and he stayed through the bad times, and I'm hoping now we're going to see the good times. But he got us through that tough little period, and obviously he was the captain of the club. It was great, I'm assuming, for the for the culture of the club at different times, and obviously Serrato's going in a different direction. But in terms of the boys, there's a reason he must have been main captain at one point. So, he must have been doing something good, and that's the thing that I think can't sort of be looked past. Is the fact that just because right now, I can sit here right now and I can say Raymond Faitala-Mariner, in my opinion, probably not a first grade standard forward in 2024. I'm putting it out there. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but that's just my opinion. But that doesn't mean he wasn't for the rest of his career at the Bulldogs. I thought he was quite good at different times, and I was happy to see him come back from injury, especially considering there was big rumours around the fact. Then I think it's kind of been confirmed that he was very close to retiring due to infections. Surgery's not going right and all that sort of stuff. So, guy super unlucky with his career at different times, and maybe in a different life we would have seen a different Raymond. But just this whole narrative for the Bulldogs that we're losing like some superstar. It's kind of like, did you not see last year? Did you not see previous years? Some of his stats were atrocious. Like that's the only way to put it. And I know you don't want to be a big stats guy, but for the Bulldogs, they're talking about being light on in the forwards. But we've played the last couple of years with our marquee forward being Tavita Pengai. He's retired. He's obviously speaks for itself in terms of his stats and involvements in games. Like he's a dude. He can win you a game or he can lose you a game, but in more times than not, he lost you a game. We had Luke Thompson on probably one of the biggest contracts for a forward in the whole NRL who barely played. And then when he did play, was kind of off the pace big time. Definitely didn't live up to standards. Then you add in Faitala-Mariner. He was our captain. He was a guy who was probably reserve grade standard, but he was our captain, so he was getting picked. The rumours are around that he, didn't, they picked him in at one position. He didn't want to play that, and then you go and look at the stats, and it kind of reflects, the whole effort sort of thing. Apparently, he spoke up for the players, which is a good thing in one way, but in other ways, it's kind of like it depends how you look at it. Depends on how the club was, because it's like if he's speaking up on standards, then the whole point is that the standards that he's been around at the Bulldogs and just his NRL career in general have been super, super low. So let's increase the standards. Don't speak up for them. Let's increase the standards sort of thing. I guess that's kind of the point that the Dogs were trying to make. And it kind of got skewed in the media. And obviously Jackson Tolpanese ended up probably getting the punt, sort of being shopped around. And then obviously Faitala-Mariner being released. Going to the Dragons, for me, I don't look at him as a guy who, even the Dragons in itself have a pretty weak team. They're argue for me, I think they're going to get the wooden spoon. I'll probably do a video talking about that coming up very soon. But for me, he doesn't scream as, a guy that's going to come into the forward pack straight away. Second row lock, I'm not sure exactly where you're playing, but I don't exactly look to him as being an improvement on what they already got. A nice experienced guy, but just in terms of improvement of actual input on the field, I don't see it. But I could be wrong there. Could be wrong. But guys, let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on Raymond Faitala-Mariner? Do you think it's a loss for the Bulldogs? Because personally, I don't. But yeah, just let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts? If you were a club in the NRL, would you have signed him, especially for a cut price deal? Would you have signed him? Maybe at a cut price deal you could do it. But I imagine the captain of the club is not on a tiny contract. So I'm going to throw that out there. But yeah, guys, if you happen to enjoy this one, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Look, you're seeing on the screen right now my social media. It's Miss Luke on YT. So go ahead, give me a follow, give me an ad. Do all that sort of stuff. Also, you're seeing on the screen right now all the current members, all the super chatters as well. But right now, you're seeing all the members. So shout out to everybody who's become a member, who's stayed a member, supported the channel financially. It really helps out the channel massively, helps out me, and also the super chatters as well. Thank you very much. We've got plenty of streams coming up as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, look, I'm going to end things here. That was my little video talking about Raymond Faitala-Mariner. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. See yous.